The greatest Batman villain is Bane. No contest. Many people will say Joker or others. I'm going to say Bane every time. Bane to me is one of the greatest DC villains and is the best rival to Batman, and he isn't talked about enough. So today, I'm going to talk about why Bane is Batman's greatest villain and why Bane deserves more love and praise. A woman is thrown into a prison in a fictional Latin country. In this Latin country, the children must pay for the crimes of their parents. So, when her son is born, he's immediately born into prison and not allowed to leave. He must pay for the crimes of his parents. He grows up in solitary confinement with his mother until she dies. Then the warden tells him that he's been protected for too long and they throw him out with all the other inmates. And he's surrounded by monsters. He can't sleep. He can't trust anyone, and he learns fast that survival is everything. And one day, after being attacked by another inmate, he falls off a high ledge and hits his head and almost dies. And while in a coma, he sees a vision, an older version of himself. This older version of himself tells him that one day he will be all-powerful, and that he will be ruling over lands, and that he's unstoppable with unstoppable strength, but only if he can overcome one final obstacle. And that is fear. And this fear takes the shape of a bat. So, Bane wakes up from his coma, and he's completely different, and he has no fear. He kills the men who attacked him, and from that moment on, he's no longer just a boy. He gets called the bane of everyone's existence. And because he murdered somebody, the guards and the warden send him to solitary confinement where he grows up in this very small cell. And in this cell, every night it floods, and he's only 9 years old, and he's just surviving. He swims all night, he eats rats, he eats fish to survive, and he does this for 10 years. He trains his body and his mind in total isolation, and slowly, he becomes something unstoppable. After 10 years, he comes out of the room, and he goes in with all the other inmates, and he would find out that he's become a legend among the jail. He would still work out constantly. He wouldn't sleep. He would just meditate for 4 hours a day, and he worked in the library so that way he could get access to all the books that he wanted. His friend Bird taught him how to read, and he would smuggle in books from the outside just to learn as much as he possibly could. He would ask other inmates what the world was like, and they would tell him about different places, and he got told about Gotham. Bane would ask who rules over Gotham, and everybody came to the conclusion that Batman owns it. He would become frustrated with the fact that he was stuck in jail and the world was out there. He would also remember all the time about his older self telling him how great he could be if he could beat his fears, which was in the form of a bat. He would rage out and kill the guards and inmates and anyone who would aggravate him. At this time, the jail would secretly be conducting experiments on inmates. Their mission would be to create advanced human beings using a drug known as venom. The problem is that no one would survive long enough to use the effects of venom correctly. And after all these people and inmates died, the warden finally thought of the strongest inmate he could, and they began to experiment on Bane. Bane would get implants in his brain that would directly feed him venom. Bane had made an escape plan where he would lower his heart rate and make everyone believe that he was dead. Then they threw his body in the ocean, and he was free. He had gotten the strength from the venom, he had gotten the experiments done, and he was finally free, but he wasn't satisfied with just escaping. So he broke back into the prison, killed the warden for all the years of torture he endured, and freed his friends. And they would head to Gotham to destroy his fears and rule over it. And this whole backstory for Bane is really the crutch of the character. Because of the years of suffering, because he grew up in a prison, he had never known anything outside of those walls. And because of his ruthless training and the environment he was in, Bane never really gained any emotions. He was constantly stuck in survival mode, and therefore, strength was everything to him. When they got to Gotham, Bane takes no time talking to the local villains and the mobs there. The thing that makes Bane a worthy opponent for Batman is his intelligence. Bane wants to know everything about Batman before he attacks. He wants to know how he fights, who he fought, how he thinks, and what he does in every situation. So for months, Bane hides in the background of every single Batman fight. he watches closely and he chooses the right time to attack Batman. So during this time where Bane is watching Batman, Batman is getting no sleep. He isn't sleeping at all. Gotham is constantly at war and crimes, and so he has no time to sleep. He's constantly fighting crime to the point where he's falling over from exhaustion. He can't think straight, and so many crimes are already happening, and Bane is also orchestrating his own crimes, giving Riddler venom, breaking all the villains out of jail, and Batman is beyond tired and he is scared of Bane. Because he doesn't know what Bane wants, he just sees this man in the shadows for months watching him and just observing him, and Batman is genuinely freaked out. And one day, after fighting crime and being tireless for months, Batman goes home and sees that in Wayne Manor, Alfred is on the floor and Bane is waiting there for him. And Bane begins to explain how easy this all was, how easy it was to figure out the bat, how easy it would be to crush him and kill him. And so he begins to just beat Batman up. And if you've never read Nightfall, I highly recommend it, because for the next couple pages, we just see Bruce getting beaten up and beaten up, not just physically, but also mentally. We see Bruce spiral down this road where he can't think straight, he loses his self, and we just see Bruce crumble. And Bane doesn't want to kill Batman. He just wants to see him broken. He wants him to live long enough to know that he has lost. So you see Bane do his iconic move, and he lifts up Batman, and he breaks his back. And the Batman is broken. So you might be asking yourself, why is Bane my favorite in my eyes? Why do I think he's the perfect villain for Batman? Is it because he's smart and has intelligence that is on par with Batman? I would say, yeah, that definitely has a factor to play into it. Is it because he's beyond powerful and a fighter in its purest form, not only physically but mentally building a fortress in his mind that cannot be broken? And yes, that's also part of it. But I think if you look deeper at these two characters, you will see broken and lost children. The parallels between Bruce and Bane are striking. Both children who lost their parents at a young age, stricken with fear, stricken with this need to grow, both seeking ways to improve themselves, to become stronger, to change their realities. Bane sought strength so that way he could never be afraid and be weak to another. In Bane's mind, strength meant the ability to control your life, your future. Strength was the only way Bane could be free and find peace in a world full of darkness and survival. While Bruce saw strength as a way to control others' fates, as a way to change the broken world that he lives in, Bane saw strength as a way to survive the world, while Bruce saw it as a way to change it. So Bane is this power-hungry man who wants to rule the world so he can never be weak. But there's also another mission to Bane: to protect others who can't protect themselves. There's one comic that explores this and gets behind the walls that Bane has. It gets behind this ideal he has for himself and this fake identity he has for himself. And that's Batman One Bad Day, #1 Bane. This comic is a what-if future, one where Bane has retired from being a villain and is a world-famous wrestler in Mexico. His most famous performance is reliving that night, a wrestling match that recreates the night he broke Batman. And after this wrestling match, we see Bane return to his mansion, where he sits in front of a fire and starts looking at this huge news article that explains how Batman got broken by Bane and how Bane controls over Gotham. And as he looks at this article, he smiles. And the smile slowly fades away and turns into sadness. Just then, a man comes knocking on Bane's door, explaining to him that he found one more vial of venom, the last that is left in the world. This is when we learn that all the venom that has ever existed is gone, up until this moment. The man explains to Bane that he can go back to being his old self, the version of himself that was unstoppable, the pinnacle of strength. And Bane looks at this vial and throws it into the fire and screams, "Never again." Bane begins to explain to the man that many, many years ago, Bane and Batman went on a journey all across the world to destroy all of the venom. So Bane tells the man that he should take him to where he found it, and they leave. And while driving his car, Bane begins to ask the young man why he wanted the venom. And the boy begins to explain that his father was a drug dealer and slowly started to find himself getting into bigger and bigger stuff. and they started selling venom. But one day, the dad lost a shipment of venom and had to pay back everything that he lost, and his son was forced to help his dad repay those debts. And then when his dad died, he was still forced to pay the debts of his father. Then Bane thinks back to his own life, how he was forced to do the same, and spend most of his early life doing the same thing that this young boy is. The boy asks Bane how Batman and him destroyed all of the venom. Bane begins to explain that Batman and him didn't talk much on their travels around the world, but were just slowly taking down all these factories and places where venom was created. And throughout their time, they began to understand each other and almost became friends. And all of their journeys led them back to one last place, in Gotham. There they would find a mutual foe named Grudge, who was beyond juiced up on venom, and Batman and Bane began to fight him. And as Grudge became stronger and stronger and they were just about to defeat him, he pulled out one last trick. He actually had a bomb inside of him, and Bane was about to sacrifice himself for Batman, but Batman jumped in the way and told Bane to escape, and so Batman died saving Bane. They finally arrived at where the boy found the venom, and Bane finds out it was just a trap. He gets kidnapped, he gets beaten up by the kidnappers, and while he's knocked out, he sees visions. He sees visions of the bat that he had saw all those years ago, the one that represents his fears. Then he starts to see his mother, and his mother tells Bane that he has fought his whole life, but soon it will be over. Bane tells his mother how much he misses her, and his mother says to him that he may have been born in the darkness, but he has grown beyond that. And she's so proud of him. And Bane wakes up to the kidnappers mocking him, saying, "Look how weak the great and powerful Bane is." Remember, Bane is just more than his strength. And he explains to the kidnappers that he knew that they would lead him right to the boss. He breaks out, beats them all up, and he finds out the one who was creating the venom. And he sees the man who experimented on him all those years ago, the original creator of the venom. You see, the original creator had kept working on the experiments of the venom for years, but Bane had always been his greatest creation. We see that the boy is tied up and is about to be experimented on. The doctor tells Bane that with this new venom, Bane could be the strongest he ever was. He can go back to being his prime. This venom doesn't not only refresh your body and make you stronger, but it also refreshes your brain and makes you back to being that sharp young man he once was. And Bane refuses and begins to fight the doctor to try to save the young boy. And the doctor asks him why he cares so much about some random kid he just met. And Bane explains to this doctor that he wasn't always strong, and at one point in his life, he had no one to protect him, so he will be what he never had at that young age, a protector to those who could not protect themselves. The doctor gets even more juiced up on venom and grabs Bane and breaks his back. Bane with a broken spine is on the ground, and the doctor offers the boy the new venom, claiming that the boy can become something more than what he is right now, that he can be strong enough to escape everything that he's ever wanted to. And the boy thinks about it. The boy thinks about taking the venom and finally being free and powerful enough to do whatever he wants. And that's when Bane screams that the venom isn't freedom. It's just a different kind of prison. So then the boy smashes the vial and the doctor grabs him, saying that he will have to make a new Bane, one that actually listens. And that's when we see Bane start beating up the doctor and making something. He says to the doctor that he didn't get created by the venom. He was strong before the venom, and he was smart before the venom. And everything in his life was his own choices that he made by himself, and there was no other man controlling him but him. So then Bane creates a bomb and blows up the factory, killing the doctor and exploding all the other venom in the factory, and as Bane begins to walk out, he falls over. We then see Bane in a hospital full of flowers and the news claiming that the world-famous wrestler is a hero. And as Bane turns off the TV, he says, "I beat you, again." And that's when we see Batman in the corner of the room, and Batman agrees. He says he was on his way to the factory, but Bane beat him there first. And Bruce says, "Good job," and says goodbye to Bane. But before he leaves, Bane screams out, "Wait." And this is when Bane begins to explain that beating up Batman all those years ago was the worst day of his life. In the moment, it felt like the best day. But ever since then, he has peaked, and he hasn't known what to do with his life. And Batman promised that after they destroyed all the Venom in the world, that they could have a fight one last time. So Bane wants his fight. He wants one last time with Batman. He knows he will lose. He knows he will die. But he wants to die knowing he was fighting the Bat. And then maybe he will be free from all the pain that he feels. The hole in his soul will finally be at rest, and he can finally be free. Bruce says he knows how much one day can change your life, and how hard it is to overcome it. But we have to own it. We have to overcome it. He shares his life with his family and tries to do as much good as possible. Bruce says he knows that in the vision Bane had as a kid, he appeared to him as a challenge. And today he will do the same. He challenges Bane to find a reason to live. Then once he does that, they can fight again. And Bane just stands there in the darkness, silent. We see Bane return to his mansion and burn the newspaper article that he had looked at so many times about beating the Batman. He walks outside with the stuff, where the boy is waiting outside asking him if Bane's really going to teach him everything he knows. And Bane says something like that. And they drive off together. Bane says that they're both going to escape their past. He's no longer afraid to try something new, as a vision of his younger self and his mother fades away. He may have been created in the darkness, but he will now live in the light. And after all of this story, after all of this, what does this have to do with anything? To me, Bane is without a doubt my favorite Batman villain. From his intelligence, his strength, his cool Mexican luchador design. But without a doubt, it's because he's just a man who's struggling. He may be a villain, but he isn't a monster. He's a broken, flawed human being just trying to piece together what his purpose is. And for years, he believed that he was made to destroy his fear. His whole driving force was to defeat Batman. That was his childish idea of purpose, and the idea of becoming unstoppable. But once he was able to look in and have an honest conversation with himself, he found out that he was nothing more than just that scared little boy trying to survive, trying to become something more than the bane to everyone's existence. Bane is flawed, like me, and he's trying to overcome these fears that hold him back from moving forward. And I think it's just so noble and so cool how Bane and Batman reflect each other so much, and how deep down inside, Bane is just struggling, but he tries to overcome it. So I hope you guys understand the character of Bane more and why I love him so much, and I hope that next time you see Bane in something, or when people bring up Batman's best villains, you bring up Bane, and not only his strength, but what makes him so human, and what makes him so relatable. Peace.